Abel James was born at 24 plus 4 on the 8th of January, and we spent 133 days on 3 different NICUs. Spent 2 months at Bolton, 2 months at North Manchester, and half a month at St Mary's for 2 different surgeries. He had eye surgery and a hernia. Common illnesses of 24-weekers is chronic lung disease. They can have brain bleeds, they can have lung bleeds, they can get neck, which thankfully Abel didn't. They can be at risk of cerebral palsy. The list is endless. Obviously, when you're first thrown into that experience, when they are listing these things to you, it is overwhelming. But when you finish your journey, it's really not as scary as what it seemed at the time. Abel's case, he had a hole in his heart, a grade 2 brain bleed. He had a pulmonary hemorrhage, which is where they bleed from the lungs. He had chronic lung disease, stage 3 ROP, which is an eye disease in premature babies. Different stages of breathing support. There's the vent, which is down the throat, and then it can go to oscillation, which is where they wobble like this, and then usually when they're on that they have to be on nitric, or that's kind of the last step that they go to. And they have BiPAP, which is a little mask on the nose, and then looks the same, but it's CPAP, and to optiflow or vapotherm, which still has pressure, but it gives oxygen, but not as much. And it's just little prongs up the nose. That's the first time you get to see the face properly. And low floor, which is what they can come home on. Intensive care, high dependency, and then SCABU, which is when they're going home. Countless blood transfusions, because when they're born so premature, they have a low HB, and when they're taking blood gases off them all the time, they can't produce it as quick as they're taking it. Something to prepare for if you are starting your NICU journey, and also the phototherapy, like for jaundice. Abel was under it every single other day when he was little on the NICU. Like a month and a half, he just never needed to go under it again. The first days were the hardest, and every day they say just take every day as it comes, and it really is that way. One day he'll be doing amazing, and the next day they say that he's not going to make it. Like, it really is that touch and go. Every day on the NICU I'd be crying. I breast pumped for my life because premature babies can't tolerate any other milk because it can cause other problems, so I just breast pump. Bill had 3 rounds of steroid injections to get him off the ventilator, and then they started him on some diuretics, and he just took a turn for the best, and that's when he started to get better and better. Surgery went really well. It was just a day surgery in and out, and it went really well, yeah. And his eye surgery was exactly the same too. The good thing about my NICU experience, all the people and amazing people who I met along the way who are going to be parts of my life forever. Nurses become like your family. Like, honestly, they're just amazing, phenomenal people who are just so good at the jobs. Like, I'm a first-time mum, so I never knew anything about being a mum, so I kind of learnt along the way with them. It was kind of nice having their guidance. Advice for someone who's just starting the journey: please don't give up. Preemies are the biggest fighters of anyone in the whole world, and they go through more than what some people would go through in a lifetime. They really are the most strongest people in the world. He's 5 months old. He is perfect. He weighs 11 pounds. His brain bleed's cleared away, and they said his brain looks perfect, and his eyes, he's been discharged from that as well. Oxygen, but we're allowed to take him off it for 4 hours a day, which is amazing. And his hole in his heart is closing, but he is still on some medication. And you've definitely got this, mama, so just hang in there. Hey-ho! Give a boy. You're a big, strong boy.
Big, strong boy.
Whoa! Are you holding yourself up?
Hold.
Ooh. Ooh.
Thank you, Charlotte, for asking me to be a part of this video. I've never done anything like this before. I'm not really sure where to look. and I'm here to share my pregnancy and neonatal journey. I've never really shared it anywhere before, so this will be the first time. Last July I had my twins Ava and Archie at 25 weeks and 5 days. We never actually found out a reason why I went into early labour. There was no answers. My waters did rupture first off at 23 weeks, so 2 weeks earlier than when the twins came, but we still don't know the reason why. I didn't have any infection and I was completely well in myself. We were on the NICU for 126 days in total. But the twins actually came home separately. Ava first came home after 100 days. Even though she was the poorlier twin in the beginning, she actually ended up being the stronger twin and is the bigger twin now. Archie didn't come home for another 26 days because he got an infection called CNV, which the doctors first thought was neck. When they first took him down for surgery and they went to look at his bowel was perfectly healthy, but they still cut him open to look inside, and they put a drain in underneath where they cut him open to drain all the fluid that was on his lungs. And we got really lucky for it to not be neck and it just be what was CNV, and he needed to be on medication for 6 months. I have both good and bad memories of the NICU. The doctors and nurses are absolutely amazing and they become your extended family. And we've made friends for life, our NICU friends, and the babies will have friends just like them who were born early for the rest of their life. Going for surgery was really awful because it was really unexpected, and you have to agree to sign away your baby's life, obviously so he could be made better, but at the time that was really hard to do. It was really hard to have 2 babies in different hospitals. We luckily got a room at the Ronald McDonald Charity Hotel, so it meant that one of us, if not both of us, was always with Archie when he was at St Mary's. Both the twins actually came home on oxygen. Archie came home in 0.06 litres and Ava came home only in 0.01. They're now both off oxygen and have been off oxygen for a while. They're living healthily, they're meeting all their corrected age targets.
Hey Nathan, look! Restaurant! Well, here we all are, outdoor restaurant, aren't we? Now, what type of restaurant is it?
It's a Jamaican restaurant, Destiny.
That's right, Destiny. It's a Jamaican restaurant. It's a little spotty teapot. Just what I need.
My only bit of advice would be to any new mums or dads who are starting their journey with a premature baby or poorly baby. Not all babies in the NICU are born early. Is it to speak to somebody if you think that you're struggling. At the time I found it really hard to talk about the experience because nobody else had been through it who I knew. I know now looking back that I wouldn't hide it like I did. I found it really hard to tell people about the babies. I found it really hard to share photos of them. And looking back now, I can post photos of them because I know that they're better.
Hello, our daughter Phoebe Kershaw was born at 23 weeks and 4 days, weighing 1 pound 4 ounces. She was born on the 12th of December and spent 131 days on 3 different NICUs.
We spent 16 weeks at Bolton, 3 days at Liverpool where she had a laser eye surgery for her ROP, and then she spent 2 weeks in Wigan. They don't have a clue why I went into labour. They think it was a water infection.
Phoebe had chronic lung disease, she had a stage 2 bleed on her brain, she had stage 3 ROP on her eyes, and she needed a contrast scan on her intestines.
The bad bits for us was that she had an infection for 5 weeks and they didn't have a clue what it was. She had many different antibiotics. It was ridiculous. She had a lumbar puncture. They just didn't have a clue. And then on Christmas Day, they had to oscillate her because they couldn't oxygenate her.
Definitely the worst day of the
That
lot.
was
Yeah.
the worst day by far. Another bad day for us was that she needed CPR. So it was about, well, we stayed over at the hospital for, was it 4 weeks? Maybe more?
4 weeks, we did 2 days there and 2 days at home.
So on one of the nights, I was expressing like constantly like Charlotte. I went down at about 3:30 in the morning to do my middle of the night express. And I got there at 3:30, just strolled in. And at 3 o'clock, they changed the positions because they have to change the positions so the head doesn't get flat. So they was changing a position and the tube came out, the ventilator tube, and she stopped breathing. So they needed to give her CPR to like bring her back really, and she responded really well, thank God. So yeah, that was another awful day.
The good days for us was obviously achieving all the milestones, like a first bottle, a first bath, a bed baths. When we finally got her off the vent after 6 weeks. 2 weeks after that, she was off BiPAP and off CPAP and onto Optiflow, which was amazing, and we never thought we'd actually get there. The staff at all 3 hospitals that we was in are absolutely amazing.
The doctors as well, they're unreal. The consultants, everyone.
They don't sugarcoat anything, they're completely honest with you and just tell you how it is, so then you're not misled. And the other parents on the ward they're the only people what can relate to what we've gone through, and we know what they've gone through.
Yeah.
Charlotte and Calden, Sonia, Brian and Gemma. There's that many that we've met and would happily stay in touch with for the rest of our life with them because they're amazing people.
Another good thing is they encourage you to do all the normal things you would do with a newborn baby, like changing a nappy, feeding her. Even if they're on feeding tubes, you can do that. Like, they're just so amazing. They just encourage you to do everything.
Phoebe came home on the 20th of April, 15 days after a due date. She's on 0.2 litres of oxygen 24/7. They've tried weaning her down, but we've not been successful yet, and she's do it.
Stubborn. She likes a 0.2.
Yeah, she'll do it in her own time. She's currently £10 15 ounces and is doing absolutely amazing.
My advice to anyone starting the journey is just to stay calm, stay strong, trust everything that the doctors and nurses are saying. Don't panic unless you see them panicking. Don't panic, and they're all amazing. I would also say express if you can or if you want to, because that milk is just like liquid gold to them little babies.
That is our little story on Phoebe, and we can't wait to see everyone else's. Thank you.
Bye.
You're so beautiful, you, aren't you? Aren't you? Yeah. You're so beautiful. Yeah. You trying to laugh? You trying to giggle? Eh? She's beautiful.
Hi, I'm Sam from Mum of a Miracle on Instagram, and I am mum to a little boy called Grayson Jack, who was born at 29 plus 2 weeks. Grayson was born early due to placenta abruption and PROM, which stands for preterm rupture of the membranes. My placenta actually abrupted before 24 weeks, and the hospital actually said if I went into early labour prior to 24 weeks they wouldn't assist me, and it would sadly be classed as a miscarriage. Luckily, Grayson did hold on, and at 24 plus 2 my waters went fully and completely, and I had no fluid for 5 weeks until he decided to send me into early labour at 29 and 2. He was born weighing £2.5 at Bolton Hospital, and we spent 80 days in NICU, and he came home 5 days after his due date. He came home without oxygen and on a limited number of medications. Some of the hardest parts of our NICU journey was definitely the failed discharges. We got prepared to be sent home 3 times and they all failed. Once we even got to the point where oxygen was being delivered to our house, but overnight Grayson took a really bad night and ended up back in intensive care. I also struggled in the lead up to his first Christmas, as he was born 29th of November and didn't come home until the February. The build up was really tough because we didn't feel like celebrating and buying presents and things while our baby was fighting for his life. But luckily, previous parents had donated gifts and the staff had put together, and on Christmas Day we walked in and Grayson had presents at the bottom of his incubator, and it turned out to be a really, really lovely day. Take as many photos and videos as possible. I was really reluctant because it didn't feel right taking a picture of a baby who was so poorly and fighting for their lives, but the nurses reminded me that in a few weeks' time, or looking back from the future, you'll be so thankful that you did. And 2.5 years on, I am so thankful, and it's easy to see the small progress that they make every day. Whilst in NICU, Grayson was diagnosed with chronic lung disease. He had a bleed on his brain, a PDA, which was a hole in his heart, and stage 1 ROP. Luckily, he didn't need surgery to correct any of this, and it was just a case of waiting for him to grow and then for them to self-correct and heal themselves. Grayson is now 2.5 years old. I know for the first 18 months since we come home, he was in and out of hospital suffering with bronchitis and bronchiolitis. Due to his chronic lung disease, it meant that when he got a chest infection, he did need hospital admissions and treatments, and there were some times when he was put on oxygen and needed steroid treatment and monitoring in hospital. Touch wood, since he turned 2-year-old, he's not needed any of that, so it's sort of like outgrown himself. He's also been discharged from his neonatal consultant, which is absolutely amazing. Milestone wise, he's hitting and he's ahead. I know the early days he did struggle. He couldn't sit up for quite a while. He crawled before he could sit up, and he was quite late with a few things, but now he's 2.5 and he's absolutely fit. He is now also a big brother, and one of the things that I always wondered after having him was, because I had a premature baby the first time, would it actually happen the second time? I know through my pregnancy I was monitored a lot more. I had scans every fortnight. I saw the consultant every week. There was times when we did expect a premature baby, but luckily Betsy was born. She was classed as premature, but she didn't need NICU or special care. My waters went early again at 36+4. There was absolutely no reason for this both times, and she was delivered by emergency section due to preeclampsia and being breech at 36+5, and she is thriving as well. My advice to anybody starting their NICU journey now is just to ask as many questions as possible, no matter how stupid they seem. We were really lucky, and our hospital was supportive and wanted us to get involved in Grayson's care as much as possible. So we actually learned how to tube feed, was able to feed him ourselves. We got involved in cares such as things like changing his nappy, giving him a top to toe wash, changing his SATS monitor and his ECG probe. Just anything that you can do to help make you feel a parent is worthwhile learning how to do if you feel comfortable. And the NICU does end. I remember sitting there and thinking, when will it be our turn to leave? I was really happy for people going home, but I did feel resentment and thinking, why is my baby not going home? But now I look back and I can't believe what a crazy time we went through, because looking at him now, you would never ever know what start he had in life.